TypoPhoto. Neither curiosity nor economic considerations alone, but a deep human interest in what happens in the world have brought about the enormous expansion of the new service, typography, the film, and the radio. The creative work of the artist, the scientist's experiments, the calculations of the businessman or the present-day politician, all that moves, all that shapes, is bound up in the collectivity of interacting events. The individual's immediate action of the moment always has the effect of simultaneity in the long term. The technician has his machine at hand, satisfaction of the needs of the moment. But basically much more, he is the pioneer of the new social stratification, he paves the way for the future. The printer's work, for example, to which we still pay too little attention, has just such a long-term effect: international understanding and its consequences. The printer's work is part of the foundation on which the new world will be built. Concentrated work of organization is the spiritual result which brings all elements of human creativity into a synthesis: the play instinct, sympathy, inventions, economic necessities. One man invents printing with movable type, another photography, a third screen printing and stereotype, the next electrotype, phototype, the celluloid plate hardened by light. Men still kill one another, they have not yet understood how they live, why they live. Politicians fail to observe that the earth is an entity, yet television, teleha, has been invented. The far-seer, tomorrow we shall be able to look into the heart of our fellow man, be everywhere and yet alone. Illustrated books, newspapers, magazines are printed in millions. The unambiguousness of the real, the truth in the everyday situation is there for all classes. The hygiene of the optical, the health of the visible, is slowly filtering through. What is TypoPhoto? Typography is communication composed in type. Photography is the visual presentation of what can be optically apprehended. TypoPhoto is the visually most exact rendering of communication. Every period has its own optical focus. Our age, that of the film, the electric sign, simultaneity of sensorially perceptible events. It has given us a new, progressively developing creative basis for typography too. Gutenberg's typography, which has endured almost to our own day, moves exclusively in the linear dimension. The intervention of the photographic process has extended it to a new dimensionality, recognized today as total. The preliminary work in this field was done by the illustrated papers, posters, and by display printing. Until recently, typeface and typesetting rigidly preserved a technique which admittedly guaranteed the purity of the linear effect, but ignored the new dimensions of life. Only quite recently has there been typographic work which uses the contrasts of typographic material, letters, signs, positive and negative values of the plane, in an attempt to establish a correspondence with modern life. These efforts have, however, done little to relax the inflexibility that has hitherto existed in typographic practice. An effective loosening up can be achieved only by the most sweeping and all-embracing use of the techniques of photography, xenography, the electrotype, etc. The flexibility and elasticity of these techniques bring with them a new reciprocity between economy and beauty. With the development of phototelegraphy, which enables reproductions and accurate illustrations to be made instantaneously, even philosophical works will presumably use the same means, though on a higher plane, as the present-day American magazines. The form of these new typographic works will, of course, be quite different typographically, optically, and synoptically from the linear typography of today. Linear typography, communicating ideas, is merely a mediating makeshift link between the content of the communication and the person receiving it. Communication left arrow typography, right arrow person. Instead of using typography, as hitherto, merely as an objective means, the attempt is now being made to incorporate it, and the potential effects of its subjective existence creatively into the contents. The typographical materials themselves contain strongly optical tangibilities, by means of which they can render the content of the communication in a directly visible, not only in an indirectly intellectual, fashion. Photography is highly effective when used as typographical material. It may appear as illustration beside the words, or in the form of phototext in place of words, as a precise form of representation so objective as to permit of no individual interpretation. The form, the rendering, is constructed out of the optical and associative relationships, into a visual, associative, conceptual, synthetic continuity, into the TypoPhoto as an unambiguous rendering in an optically valid form, an experiment, P124. The TypoPhoto governs the new tempo of the new visual literature. In the future, every printing press will possess its own block-making plant, and it can be confidently stated that the future of typographic methods lies with the photomechanical processes. The invention of the photographic typesetting machine, the possibility of printing whole editions with X-ray radiography, the new cheap techniques of block making, etc., indicate the trend to which every typographer or typophotographer must adapt himself as soon as possible. Black circle this mode of modern synoptic communication may be broadly pursued on another plane by means of the kinetic process, the film. Simultaneous or polycinema. A cinema should be built equipped for different experimental purposes in regard to apparatus and projection screen. One can, for example, visualize the normal projection plane being divided by a simple adapter into different obliquely positioned planes and cambers, like a landscape of mountains and valleys. It would be based upon the simplest possible principle of division, so that the distorted effect of the projection could be controlled. Another suggestion for changing the projection screens might be one in the shape of a segment of a sphere instead of the present rectangular one. This projection screen should have a very large radius and therefore very little depth, and should be placed at an angle of sight of about 45 degrees for the viewer. More than one film, perhaps two in the first trials, would be played on this projection screen, and they would not indeed be projected onto a fixed spot, but would range continually from left to right or from right to left, up and down and up, etc. This process will enable us to present two or more events which start independently of one another, but will later by calculation combine and present parallel and coinciding episodes. The large projection screen has the further advantage of representing a process of movement, let us say that of a motor car, from beginning to end with greater illusion, movement in the second dimension, than the present projection screen on which one image must always be fixed.